Welcome everyone to the DJ Force X podcast. We've just come off celebrating our 10th anniversary last month, and I'm here with a very special guest starting November, with Lauran Carter from Guildford.Games.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm gonna be awkward from the get-go because I am to my core a marketing person. So we do try and say Guildford.Games,
Sorry, Guildford.Games.
but it is a bit of a mouthful. So
Okay,
don't worry about it.
that's all right. That's all right. Everyone, Guildford.Games. That's also
If
the
I
web
ever
address.
do it, that's why, because
Yeah.
I'm particular. Yeah, but hi. Do
Hello.
you want me to give a little spiel? Give you a little bit of
Yes, I was going to
background
say, can we get a bit of an origin story into this Guildford.Games, about where you guys sort of started, where you're going, stuff like that?
Sure. It's ultimately, Guildford.Games was created in around 2019. And its main kind of purpose at inception was to connect all of the Guildford studios, because we everyone kind of involved on the organising side, on the committee, has some kind of background with Guildford studios, and through working with them, alongside them, embedded, etc., it became very apparent that the fear, I suppose, of NDAs and information sharing was meaning that, this incredible historical hub, something that was so important to not just, the UK and the UK industry, but, so much further afield than that, was all kind of, everyone was existing in little bubbles, and really there was a lot of knowledge sharing that could be done, that, could be safe and, perfectly not NDA breaking,
Yeah.
actually kind of served to connect everyone a little bit more and make a community out of Guildford. So that was the initial idea. And in 2019, we had, I was only kind of peripherally involved at that point, through my work with Liquid Crimson. So I should say my day job is comms director for Liquid Crimson,
Yeah.
and myself and my boss, I guess, Jason is also heavily involved, has a background. He kind of started at EA, and then the company as it is now exists because EA did one of their classic cutting of people, and a lot of the big studios do it. We have the ebbs and flows. It's how development works. And then on the other side of that, Carl kind of realized, oh no, we still need some video production done here, so asked Liquid Crimson to be created in order for that work to continue with the team that was there. Yep. And then where my kind of side of Guildford connection comes in, I've worked for Lionhead, for EA. I started my career at EA and then at Codemasters. I've worked for Media Molecule, I've worked for 2 Point Studios, I've worked for a lot of the Guildford studios, and have a lot of love for every single one of them. So yeah, 2019, the kind of Guildford Games Committee was formed, and then we had our first ever festival, which consisted of about 10 exhibitors, maybe 100 people came down to G Live for the first ever one. We had the Guildford Game Awards that we still do, and what we kind of saw from there, and this is a proper origin story because it is how all of it kind of came to be as it is now. We then almost immediately, by this point, I've joined Liquid Crimson full-time, and therefore get to work on Guildford Games as opposed to just hosting the awards, which is what I used to do before. We were almost immediately thrown into lockdown. So we had this thing that was growing, that people were starting to, albeit very few people paying attention to, that we wanted to start, to really push in bigger directions, other directions. And we're in lockdown. So at that point, my background with community management and Twitch streaming and all of that kind of stuff really came into its own. And we decided that we'd do 2 years of, well, we didn't know it would be 2 years at the time, of virtual festivals. So where we would, we were planning on having talks and panels. We thought, what, if we can safely get into the studios that will allow us to do so, and record interviews with key members of their teams. And then for those 2 lockdown years, we streamed 2 lots of 9-hour interview sessions with nearly all of our sponsors. Guildford Games is a not-for-profit, so everything we do is funded by our sponsors. We were allowed to go to Endreams and EA and PlaySport and all of these other awesome studios and talk to incredible people, and got these great interviews together, aired those on Twitch and on the front page of Steam. And that first year, we got over 2 million views on that content, which was, mind-blowing. And at that point, we realized, okay, what we're doing here as far as connecting our community and making Guildford feel like a community of people rather than bubbles, we've also got this amazing opportunity to reach out to people, using the voices of developers that games that they love and play and admire and all of that kind of stuff. We could really be making a difference here and inspiring the developers of the future, as well as forming a bit of a united front for Guildford developers. So yeah, we had 2 years of lockdown, over 2 million views each year on Twitch and Steam. And from there, we've just been making a point of making sure that everything we do for Guildford.Games serves both sides, both the developer and the player side of interest and love for Guildford and what Guildford means to video games. So yeah, and that leads us to where we are now with the festival. For the last 2 years, we've done the festival at G Live, only rather than 10 exhibitors and 100 people. We're now hitting, I think we have around 40 exhibitors, 60 speakers, and those speakers are from a range of places. Not just the games industry, but a huge amount of them come from our sponsors, who are Guildford developers. We had the head of Sony Music speak last year. Our keynote speaker was Craig Duncan of Rare, who's now, I believe he's been promoted to head of game studios at Xbox. So kind of a big deal.
Yeah, kind of.
He opened our festival last year. We had Charity Joy, who's the head of Criterion. Loads of incredible people all come together and give panels and talks and portfolio reviews. And last year's festival, we hit nearly 5,000 people, came entirely for free. All of this information is completely for free for people to obtain on the festival side of things. So yeah, that's not quite a nutshell.
No, that's all right. That's
what Guildford's all about. Yeah,
no, that's good, because Guildford has a rich history of gaming. Like, I'm from around these parts, so traveling to Guildford when I was a kid, going into Guildford, we used to go past the Guildford Business Park, and it was the Bullfrog Studios originally back then. Now, like, over the years, obviously that's changed. My wife actually works in that building now, totally different industry, but like
the
iconic
history in those walls, dude. Yeah.
I know, right? And there's gaming studios still there as well. I think Wargamer are there. I think it is. And I don't know, there's loads of other companies in there now, but no, it's just it's weird from going from there, because I used to play obviously some of the Bullfrog game Syndicate specifically, because that had those buildings in the game as well. Sort of going back on my sort of thing. But yeah, and obviously with EA being in town, that sort of was a big deal. Obviously Lionhead as well, like you said, you work for them. I did a little bit of like on and off games testing for them back in the day.
Oh, cool.
I think I did, it was like Fable 2 or 3. I can't quite remember. It was a long time ago. But yeah, no, some of the like other studios you mentioned, just like, I don't know how, like, I mean, obviously people within the industry probably know how important Guildford is to especially the UK gaming industry. But a lot of people don't. Like, a lot of people are shocked that Guildford houses or housed these studios over the years.
Yeah, and that's another huge part of what we do. This year, for the first time, we were offered a free tent at Guildfest, which came back for the first time in a decade, which was very exciting stuff. But what we essentially did, we were given a huge tent. Thank you very much, Tony at Guildfest, if you ever listen to this. But we engaged one of our sponsors, Joypad, who are local but not necessarily Guildford, near enough. Anyone can sponsor GG, obviously, not for profit. We're not going to say no. And we love to work with people like George at Joypad. So he worked with us to get hold of, I think it was 8 Guildford games from the history of Guildford's development past, starting, I think we had Fable, we had A Need for Speed, we had No Man's Sky, we had Baldur's Gate, we had a couple of others that aren't coming to me immediately, and essentially hung out for the weekend, I'm very lucky, again, because we're a not-for-profit. I rely on volunteers outside of the committee. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're all volunteers as well. But then I have a group of amazing volunteers from the Guildford studios who are really passionate about, keeping this community alive. And, the way we all look at it is that if we kind of enable those connections within the Guildford developers, and there's no real competition in game dev, because people join a project because they love a project, and once that project's gone, obviously people move on. It's a natural part of how we work. So just to have those connections, that's hopefully is then laying the foundations for Guildford to continue being the hub and such an important part of the UK industry. But I digress. So these wonderful volunteers that I have gave up their entire weekends to come and hang out in the blistering heat at Guildfest, tucked away in a tent about as far away from all of the bands as you could get. And I had to say to them, you'll get to watch the bands. And we just kind of spoke to the festival goers of Guildfest about what was on their doorstep. And yeah, people don't realise. They just don't realise that, that they're walking past. I mean, sometimes I walk past places in Guildford and get like a little bit overwhelmed with, oh God, I wonder what led to that game being made. And we're standing outside the studio, and they're in the news, they're everywhere at the moment, whichever studio it is. And yet we get to stand right here and interact. It's all a little bit mind blowing. But yeah, my line with people that either don't play games or don't realise that Guildford is a game dev hub is, we're not just talking about quirky little indie games that few people have heard of. And I love me a quirky little indie game. We do have some great examples in town. We're talking about the games that are advertised on ITV on a Saturday night. This is not some kind of faux worshipping of something that isn't worth worshipping. Guildford is so important to the games industry as a whole.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like, because I went up to what was it, not off tangent, but I went up to like Dundee, and they've got their
Another
own.
one.
Yeah, they've got in their like town museum, they've got like exhibits of games that have been developed in that town. And I go to Guildford, and like Guildford Museum, it's very small, doesn't really have that.
Yeah, and I
There's things
think
like that
Guildford
I feel.
Museum, they did an exhibition on Guildford.Games a couple of years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Guildford made games. See, this is where the dot becomes important, because now that I'm specifying Guildford made games rather than Guildford.Games.
Yes.
So they kind of showcased a load of bits and pieces, but it was heavily reliant on the developers giving their items. I think the messaging was you can donate items to be shown at the museum, but you may not get them back. And we're grown-ups here that have lives and have to move house and get given a lot of merch. The things that we choose to keep are the things that we're choosing to keep. They mean something. So there's a fundamental misunderstanding, I think, in the wider world of just how in the trenches game dev can be, that we're the biggest industry now, the biggest entertainment industry, and yet every single day we go to work not necessarily knowing what we're going to do or what's going to happen or how we're going to do something. So that's what makes games special, the kind of the in the trenches moments. Crunch is a dirty word in a lot of places, but there is a difference between enforced crunch and choosing to crunch.
Yes.
And if you're choosing to crunch, it's because you're incredibly passionate about what you're doing, and that's great as long as you don't burn yourself out and you're being looked after. Yes. But yeah, I think the wider world just doesn't realize how embedded we become with our teams, with the process, with the whole thing. And then when these opportunities arise, such as museum exhibitions, there's a disconnect as to how it could be done. And my issue is, Barnaby, I'd like to say, I'll do it, I'll organise it, let me do it. But I say that to pretty much everything. And talking now, I will head that way if I'm not careful. So yes,
you have to be careful with that. Yeah. No, I mean, I was back in a little while ago. I was involved in helping organise retro gaming events, as they were, like where people would hire out a community room. We'd have a whole ton of old consoles old computers, Amigas, etc., all set up for people to play. And I know how stressful that sort of stuff can be because there's this aspect of not random people playing on it, but loads of people using these machines that are your personal machines.
Yeah.
And they may not come back in the same condition.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
There's stuff
It's,
like
it's
that.
a full-time job. That's it.
Yeah,
Like being at Guildfest, being at a festival, and being at EGX, being at whatever
yeah.
kind of games show, and showing people something. It's very different to going, yeah, keep that for 3 months, and it will be fine when it comes back to me.
No,
No,
it won't.
that's
Can't
nightmare
do
fuel.
that. I couldn't do that. I used to have a massive collection of retro gaming consoles and everything. I ended up selling them all because I moved country, but it's one of my biggest regrets is doing that.
Mm,
I've since kind of dabbled in going back into it, but the prices have kind of, I'd say, skyrocketed on some of the stuff that I
yeah.
used to have, which is, it's fair because they're becoming rarer.
Mm,
And obviously, there's stores like CEX and stuff like that that have really kind of they're kind of dictating a lot of the pricing, and obviously eBay's always been
mm,
eBay. Um, but yeah, no, I used that's what I like. I used to have extensive collection of machines.
awesome.
I'm now just down to my sort of more recent generation consoles. I mean, I've got an Xbox, as most people do, and I've got like the series ones behind it as well, and a lot of the little mini consoles that have been
Yeah,
releasing
man.
because it's just an easier way. I've got a family. I've got very little space, as you can
Got
see.
to
It's very
scale down. Mm,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, like going on from like what you were saying about like if we go back to the festival side of
mm.
it, if you don't mind, your gaming one at G Live, not the Guildford festival, because I remember playing that many years ago when it was its original guys. But yeah, no, like when I was at your one last year, I was actually surprised about like some of the guests. Like you said, you had like not just from gaming, but you had specifically Julie Weir,
Mm.
who I know from my back in my day being a musician. We played one of her, like she used to put on these all ages shows in London.
Mhm.
And it's one of the most memorable shows I ever played. So
Julie's just a legend.
oh,
Everything
she
she
totally is.
touches is
Yeah.
is just wonderful. Yes,
Yes,
awesome.
she is absolutely lovely person. And it was just great to reconnect with her because I hadn't spoken to her in probably 15 years or something. I doubt we remembered like the conversations from before, but it was just like,
Oh, I'm sure she did.
I should
She's
know. I
good
mean,
luck.
we reconnected. Like she remembered the show because it was headlined by Skindred, who, are still doing very well. And we were on that bill as well, and it was just a crazy show. But it was great to like hear her sort of side of things, like still within the music industry, and what she looks for, when it comes to not just like run of the mill bands and stuff, but actually like like getting that music into
Mm,
gaming.
yeah.
And that was something that I was very much because I've got friends who like sell music through sync, things like that. So they get onto various gaming adverts and stuff like that. One of them just got onto um what was it? The Mortal Kombat soundtrack, Mortal Kombat 1 soundtrack. And a few of like he's done stuff in the past for like COD, like adverts, like the little web adverts online, like his music's been used in the background and all that kind of stuff. But it was just great to get that insight because you had that and you had a couple of other guys. I can't remember who because you were hosting it. I remember that.
It was the guys from Cedar. I mean, honestly, I will. I kind of hope they don't listen to this. I will remember that panel on my deathbed. It was just so lovely. It was honestly, I think I've used it. I haven't done any recorded interviews recently, so I was probably just babbling on at someone on a call. But I've referenced it recently because it is almost a microcosm for for what Guildford.Games is all about,
Yeah.
ultimately, what the festival's all about. Um, and what was so wonderful about it is, first of all, Julie is a veteran. She's awesome. She knows everyone. She's seen everything,
Yep.
and she is a joy. At any time that you get to engage with her. But she was dumbstruck walking into the festival. She came up to me. It was the first time I met her, I think, and she's a connection through my boss Jace. They used to hang out in the Intrepid Fox back in the day.
Yeah. Standard.
Cool kids. Yeah, cool kids. Um, I think I only managed to go twice before they shut it down. Anyways, um, so she came to the festival, and I think one of the first things she said to me was, I can't believe how many women are here. Like I've been looking at the lineup and looking at the people that are in attendance. I can't believe it. Like in my mind, games are boys. I had no idea that it was, that it was such a female kind of a balanced. We're definitely getting to the point of being balanced.
Yeah.
And again, that is a popular misunderstanding of games, people that play games, people that make games, etc. So there was that side of it. But then the panel itself, the guys from Cedar, who I just adore. So they are the dudes that did the soundtrack for the first 2 Point game. So 2 Point being, we've already mentioned Bullfrog and Lionhead. So why don't we just keep that moving into 2 Point? And they were incredibly junior at the time that they were brought on. Phil and Tom are their names, I should say, because Cedar's now, I think, a bit of a bigger beast. It's not just the two of them. But at the time, it was just the two of them. And it was their first ever gig. And they were in a very kind of lucky position of having the ear of Gary Carr and Mark Webley, who were going through the process of finding their publisher for 2 Point, meaning that they were able to kind of set what they wanted, who they wanted to work with, who was going to be involved a little bit. And they chose Cedar, a completely green audio team, who then just did the most incredible work and have worked on all of the 2 Point games. But the music they designed for 2 Point is quite literally created to keep you listening without realizing that you're listening. It is the perfect working music because it just kind of ticks away in the background and you don't even realize it. But then you get all of the wonderful tannoy stuff in Game with Jane, which is just awesome. Anyway, so what was so cool about having Tom and Phil and Julie together is that Julie was learning as much from them and turning her entire body towards them, eating up every bit of information that they were giving her. And these guys are like mid-20s, sitting next to someone who has seen it all in the games industry, that has in the music industry, sorry, that's been responsible for all of some of our favorite bands, I should think, like in some way or another. And to see that kind of, that knowledge sharing and that passion and that interest is what it's all about. Like that's literally why we do it, for those moments. So yeah, that was that. I'm so glad you referenced it.
Oh, it was great. Like I said, I got that total vibe from it as well. Like having these guys on there with Julie, and she was learning as like, and that's great to see, especially someone like you say who has kind of seen it all within the music industry, but is still hungry to find out what's next. Is never stopping, like because they know, like especially in the music industry, if you kind of like if you stagnate on something, you lose it. Like, and it's happened multiple times throughout history of the music industry, from changing formats of music to how music is distributed, and how like now obviously a lot of people can do everything themselves. So how do they counteract that? How do they continue to obviously be a business primarily, but how do they still cultivate that musical that artistry, like especially with those guys from Cedar, and you're right, and like when they were going through like how they make the music, like they'll go through just making random sounds. It would be like a clip of like whatever it was. It was like, it could be a clip of like 3 seconds of something but they just elongate it out. And it was really interesting for me because being I'd say an ex-music, I am still a music. Well, I haven't made music in ages, but
never go away.
like being in that industry and being like part of that and one for making sounds and all that kind of stuff. It was fantastic insight. And obviously the surprise for me was Julie, because I was like, I had no idea that she was going to be there beforehand. I literally turned up quite green into this thing. I went along as basically I was looking to potentially look into sort of different career path that I'm on right now, which I'm still exploring, but a year on. But it was just sort of like that was my main aim. I've got friends who were there who work for various gaming companies as well, so it was nice to bump into them. Former bandmate of mine actually works for End Dreams. And I don't know if no, the other guy wasn't there, so that's fine. But there was some other people that I'd sort of like bumped into. So just like either people who were working there or people who actually went. And obviously walking through G Live and everything, which was quite nice. Actually seeing some of those other rooms that I'd never seen before, like the
There's
ones
so many rooms.
there is. It's crazy. Because I remember it being the Civic, and that was like,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah, I
think,
saw TerraVision there in like 98, I
yeah,
think, or
it's crazy.
something. That's my overriding memory of that building. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then since then, I've been back to see, like I said beforehand, Michael Palin. I was there for that one. Skunk and Nancy as well. I saw
I'm
them.
going to that too.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I can't wait. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
it's so good. But I went to the one last, I think it was last year.
Oh, I'm going to the one coming up. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm very
I'm toying
excited.
with the idea of going with that, but I think we might be away on holiday, so I'm just sort of seeing if we are or we're not. But if I'm not, I'm there because it was so good. It was like it was really nice that on the doorstep as well because
Yeah.
I'm only in Camberley, so it's not
Yeah,
that far.
not far.
But
You've got
it's
the Edge though, mate. You can always just go to the Edge.
nice.
Jobs are good.
Yeah, you say that. Um, no, I shouldn't knock it. I DJ with Brad still, so I'm like I do Schism, by the way. If you've never,
Oh, there you go. Well, there you go. That's why I go to the Edge court.
yeah.
That's the reason. Yeah, good. Sweet.
So,
Sweet.
but yeah, no, I've totally lost my train of thought now,
Sorry.
but it
I'm a
doesn't matter.
derailer.
It's all good. No, it's fine. It was I mean, back to like that little conversation and the like, oh yeah, that was it. Having friends at the festival and stuff, and I've got tickets for next year as well.
Awesome.
Already ordered those. Toying with bringing one of my daughters along as well because one of them very much into her gaming, so she's kind of at that point. She's at college now, so I don't know if she's maybe looking into that, but it's just something for her to consider along those lines if she
Yeah,
wants to.
absolutely. Well, perfect place for it. Well, this year is this year. Next year, it's very confusing because our years run March to February.
Yeah,
So we are technically in this year, but the festival doesn't happen until February. So what we're doing with 2025's festival is we've kind of realized that we're doing something pretty special, right? We are getting the attention of not just local general community, which was really the point of the festival, was to connect with players and just people in Guildford. Last year, I would say I was refreshing LinkedIn in the month or so building up to the festival. I was refreshing LinkedIn, I don't know, four times a day. And every time I was seeing a post from someone that I didn't know. And I know that sounds crazy. I've been in the industry a long time. I know a lot of people. My job
yeah,
is to know people. So yeah, I mean, literally hundreds of people that I've never met, that I've never heard of, coming from all over the country to come and attend, talks like Julie's. There were so many just awesome talks. We had playable Switchback VR as well. We had portfolio reviews that were absolutely overrun. We did those for the first time, thinking, oh, maybe people would be interested in this. Slammed.
yeah, I saw that.
All day.
It's crazy.
Shout out to Hugh. I know he's going to listen to this. Hugh is one of our volunteers that asked me just before the festival, oh, could I help out with anything? I'd love to get into games and just be a little bit more involved. I thought, portfolio review, that would be nice and relaxed. And be able to just, like drop in and out of conversation with the developers that are there that are it would be great. He bossed it. What a legend. Absolutely owned it. But yes, that was a baptism of fire if it one ever existed. So we're realizing that the caliber of our speakers, what we're doing, which is offering all of this knowledge for free with the view to the, longevity and inspiring developers of the future and keeping Guildford going. We were essentially, because the festival is a little bit of a mashup, it's mainly for players, it's mainly for aspiring developers, but there are always going to be a couple of finance talks we'll get in, or culture chats, or how to level up your staff, or whatever. And through attending some of the other events this year, and I'm going to use Develop as an example. Develop is, long-standing, absolutely beloved. Down in Brighton, you get a week's worth of events out of it, fringe events. Everyone hosts something. You can all go and hang out and see all, your career will walk by you while you're standing on the beach, and it's really bizarre and different people's faces that you haven't seen for ages. And Develop's absolutely awesome. But they announced their figures this year, and they are an event that happens over 3 days. You can, as a developer, you have to pay around £1,000 to attend. And over those 3 days, they got head count of do they say footfall? One of those, they got head or feet amounting to just over 5,000 people. It's actually written on a post-it note above my desk because I use it as inspiration that, we really are building something here that, that's rivaling, not meaning to, because we're a slightly different thing. So we were approached by an incredible dude called Steve Cuss, who has been involved in Guildford Studios through he's worked at Criterion for a long time, actually has a book out at the moment I would recommend to anyone called Liberated Leadership. It's right here. You should check. Everyone should check it out. It's interesting kind of stuff about Criterion as much as it is about being a better person and stuff. We were approached by Steve over the summer, and he essentially said, I really think you guys have got something here, and that there's a way to kind of split these two things out, the stuff that's for developers, the stuff that's for the general public and aspiring developers, and put a very, very small paywall in order to make both more valuable ultimately. So for the first time this year, we're doing the Dev Summit, which is incredibly reasonably priced, first and foremost. If you bear in mind that you can pay up to £1,000 to attend other industry events, yes. We're charging £50 for Guildford Studios and £95 for anyone outside of that, which is minimal, really. Oh, it will be almost entirely about culture and finance. There'll be 2 tracks, financing, 2 tracks running for the day that will either be about leveling up your team, leveling up yourself, making sure that you're instating the correct pillars for your culture, for your business to kind of grow on, or it will be about pitching funding, how to kind of ensure that you're tapping into the right things when you go to pitch for financing. So yeah, we're going to be running that at the Harbour Hotel. There'll also be, a lot more than just the 2 tracks. We're looking at having some roundtables. We're looking at having some kind of general service supplier type meeting opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So we're actively building what we're doing here, and we want to make sure that any information that small teams may need, because the way that games work means that there's always going to be, if you're starting out on your own, there will always be a period of time where it's just the 3 of you, it's just 5 of you, and you're doing everything and you're wearing every hat because you have to. Yeah. We want to make sure through the GG Dev Summit that any assistance we can be giving those smaller studios, small to mid, once you get to your kind of huge AAA studios, they have all that support in place. Yeah. But whilst you're building to that point, if we can help make sure that more studios come out of that part of their life cycle ready to make something cool and start getting attention, we want to help as much as possible. So yeah, it's another kind of string to the GG bow. It's very much managers, founders, leads kind of aimed at as far as audience, but we're hoping that it's going to do some good stuff.
Is that the same time as the festival?
On the same day,
it's the hotel across the road, isn't it? Harbour.
Yeah, pretty much next door, near enough. And Harbour have been amazing. They came on board as sponsors last year. Maybe they host us for our dev drinks, which is something else we do with GG. Try and do them every 3 months, but it's all dependent on funding and what needs prioritizing at any point. So yeah, they're essentially giving us all of their meeting rooms and their function room and their bar, and we're just going to have as much useful knowledge sharing and support giving as we can squeeze into the day. So yeah, a whole new chapter.
I was going to say they've got quite the rooms underneath that hotel. That it's quite
a lot of space,
very disguised, very TARDIS like. Go in there. But I remember I did 2 days. It was like market research, but also play testing for Little Big Planet in there years ago. It's like underneath, and I got to play it in its very like bare bones. I think I actually finished the game as well, which was in the first day, and they were like, "Oh,
they are two." I mean, that's amazing. They are two. LBP and LBP2 are probably.
Yeah. I
reckon they'd both be in my top 5.
Yeah.
And this is really what it's all about, right? Like the core of GG for me, when you're dealing with anything that's a not-for-profit, and you're volunteering time and effort and everything. It has to be about the absolute passion. And I think it's worth saying, although very aware that this is not just about me. I have committee members who help me with lots of stuff. But I was someone that had no real direction until my late 20s, really. And what gave me that direction was video games, was the Guildford.Games industry. I didn't go to university. I'm not studious, really. I'm not that kind of person. And I'd gotten into the kind of routine of waking up every morning and thinking, oh God, this is me for the rest of my life. Like, I'm just gonna have to wake up and dread dragging myself to a workplace for 8 hours and hate every moment of it. And then a friend of mine who has sadly passed away since, at the point where you start talking about your jobs, I guess, we must have been like mid-20s, where jobs actually become a topic of discussion, mentioned that he worked at EA, and we just never talked about it before. And then I was like, wait a minute, EA are in Guildford?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. And from there, I essentially went through, it was 4 or 5 interviews at EA. I just kept going because EA, a lot of studios work on personality fit more than anything else.
Yeah.
So they knew that I would be a fit for the studio, but they couldn't find the right place for me. So I just kept going through these rounds. Very nearly didn't take it when they gave me the call to say that I got the job, because I'd had to take work elsewhere. It was my brother. I have told this story. I won't go too far into it. My brother convinced me. If he hadn't have said, what do you mean you're not taking the job at EA? I wouldn't be talking to you now about all of these amazing people. So yeah, my first gig at EA, and then quickly after that, I think Cody's Media Molecule and Lionhead, where the first few gigs that I had, it was, I can do a thing that I hate, but I can do it in a place that I love, which kind of makes it okay. Like, that's cool. And then it was, the team at Lionhead were just the most welcoming and open and willing to just pull you along with them. Like, what do you want to do? Let's do it. Like, where do you want to be? And 2 people in particular, one being Adam Stone, who is currently working at Fuse, which is a Guildford studio break off from EA Criterion, and no doubt going to be amazing things. I think he's their lead designer. Adam Stone and Ted Timmins, who is now game director at Raven, were both incredibly responsible for saying to me, what do you mean you want to be a PA? What do you mean you want to do my expenses for me? And in Adam's case, let me teach you about game design. Come and sit next to me in your lunch breaks, and I can show you what we use, and you can understand the tools a bit better and get more involved. And one thing that will stick with me forever that Adam also taught me was to look up in video games. The game designers spend all this time creating this world, and you're going to do this. Like, look at it. If it hadn't have been for those guys, I wouldn't be doing any of this. If it hadn't have been for Gary Carr always being incredibly supportive and wonderful, I wouldn't have gone on to be the community manager launching 2 Point Hospital. There's so many people, Johnny Hopper and Mike and Adam at Glowmade, so many people who have given me opportunities. Jason and Linda at Liquid Crimson. Going to say that just before I go any further. Of course, Jason and Linda at Liquid Crimson taught me at Lionhead how to be on camera, so they're directly responsible for what's in front of you. All these just amazing people doing incredibly stressful jobs that aren't linear, that change minute by minute, that can literally change your mood from happy to wanting to walk out into the night never to be seen again. These people took their time to help nurture me, to help teach me things, to help push me in a direction to do something more than wake up every morning and hate myself. So that's what GG is all about for me. It's paying back in some way or another all of those incredible people that have given anything from a minute to hours of their time to other people's progression, which is just the coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah, damn right. Well, I've got, like, on that note, I've got a couple of questions left for you. That's right, because
Sure.
it's like almost a perfect place to leave it. But I've always got these ender questions that I kind of ask everyone on my show. And now typically my show is music based. So I have a lot of musicians on here, like from the heavy music community mainly. But I have had Tiffany on here, legendary the Tiffany,
Amazing.
and Midjor as well. Um,
Brilliant.
not to name drop, but I've had people on here. It's been great. Um, but what I normally ask people, I'm going to ask you this 2 point question, actually, like the two-pronged question, I should say. Nothing about two
Mhm.
you guys. Well, it might do. You never know. But I normally ask people three of their pivotal records. Yeah,
Ooh,
music records. So three albums or three tracks that kind of changed your life. Now, in the musician sense, I usually go, whatever made them want to pick up a guitar, made them want to sing, all that kind of stuff. So if you, I mean, I can see you've got pictures of Ruben behind you. I can see that. I recognize it
good,
because I
good.
am from this
Good
area,
past.
and
Yeah.
and I am very well versed in Aldershot. I was very much part of that scene back in the day, and the West End Centre and all that kind of stuff. Barney Evans, legend that he is.
Barney, I met him at Abbey Road recently. This
Yeah,
is the weirdest thing, right? I went to there, right, right. There's a
right. Go on.
Guildford-ish studio called Silver Script,
Yep.
who's headed up by the most incredible woman, Alex Jones, who is making an autobiographical game about a life that nobody would want to live, but people need to understand, hear the story. It's gonna
Okay.
do some great work, I'm sure. Um, she was recording the soundtrack for her game. She very kindly invited me to go and do some of the singing for the choral parts for some of the why can't I remember the rearrangements
Yep.
for some of the songs. And my team, Liquid Crimson team, we do video trailers, all that kind of stuff. So they were filming for her behind the scenes stuff that she'll be putting out. And at there was a lovely guy called Barney there, chatting away with them all day, having the nicest time. What a lovely dude! What a nice guy! I love that dude. The very last thing that happened is we were all sat down in front of a camera one by one to just give a very, very quick interview for the behind the scenes footage. And Barney went first, I believe. And he sat down and said, you know what, it's just been so nice to be here. I don't think I've been here since I recorded with Ruben. And at that point, there will be an audible in the background because I'm going to say whether it comes in at number one or number three, I don't know, or number two, I don't know where it sits. But race car is my first pick for your question.
Cool.
Race
Excellent.
car changed my fucking life, and I adore it. I adore it. Um, yeah, I don't. I'm on a Ruben kick at the moment. I don't know why I would say. I think I'm always on a Ruben kick. They don't age, man. They
No, it's
do not.
true.
Like they are timeless.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Yeah, love them. So yeah, race car will be number one. I alongside Jason and Linda giving me a lot of help with being a performer, being on camera and stuff. The other thing that did it was my band, who are a covers band called Dust and Bones. We play entirely Guns N' Roses. And I was told at school that I couldn't sing. So I'm going to put Appetite in as my second, because
Nice.
Appetite was the album that led me to realize that not only could I sing, but I could match Axl Rose note for note.
Fantastic.
That music teacher at Bow Hunt School.
Yes, exactly
And
that.
my third, oh my God, what would my third be? You know what? I think it would be Theo Katzman's songs in the Modern Johnny sings songs in the key of. It's a really long title. I can't remember all of it.
Right.
It's another one that I will never. I don't think it will ever leave my top played albums or tracks. Like it's just beautiful, start to finish.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I mean, Appetite is a 10 out of 10 album, like in
Yeah,
many respects.
isn't it?
Uh,
Just bangers,
I,
solid
I
bangers.
Guns N' Roses is like my favorite band of all time. So this is all music to my ears in that respect. And
Stars are aligning. This is
I think,
great.
and like, just like, yeah, it's a 10 out of 10. It's a non-skippable album.
Mm.
As for race car as well, Ruben, obviously local legends, in that respect. Obviously Jamie Lemon's still going with his solo stuff and
I
everything.
think he's literally this week retired.
Oh, really?
I'm
Okay. Oh,
sorry
fair enough. No,
if
that's
I've
all
got to
right.
deal with it. You have,
The
yeah.
last picture
Because
I
I've
saw of him,
been
he was dressed up as Beetlejuice for last night.
oh
So,
amazing.
so um, but
I've
he,
been listening to Muscle Memory, and I thought, oh, I wonder what else Jamie's up to. Oh,
yeah.
oh, he stopped.
Oh, fair enough. He does a lot of illustrations and things like that, and
Wonderful
No,
man.
he's a
Wonderful
wonderful
man.
man, and he used to serve me fish and chips back in the day. That's my connection to him in Farnham, where I grew up. He was working in, I think it was called
So cool.
Traditional Place, spelled Plice. Uh,
Nice. Nice.
one of those random rock star jobs that we all had back in the day. I used to work in a video store, for instance,
That's
and
it. That's how it
then
goes.
go around touring the country, and then come back, and I'm back in this video rental outlet.
Yeah, it must have been bizarre. Oh my God.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, all three fantastic albums there. My other point to the prong to this question I was going to ask you, I was going to flip it a little bit, but I was going to go three games that sort of changed your life.
Whole time.
Yeah,
No,
well, kind of, yeah. Like if you could pick three that were the most pivotal, that kind of, the one that kind of maybe threw you towards where you are now.
I mean, the one that threw me towards where I am now, I reckon, is Theme Hospital.
Yeah, no,
I played Theme Hospital and Theme Park, but I played Theme Hospital to death. And I remember when I started at Lionhead, I'd I kind of stopped playing video games for my mid-teens to early 20s were really just drinking and music. I didn't play video games. I was never home long enough to boot up a console in those days, frankly. So it didn't happen. But my brother was still playing. When I got to Lionhead, I realized, like, oh shit, these are the guys that made those games. That I used to really love. And I went home scrambling, got to find theme. Like I've got to have something. Couldn't find anything, but couldn't find anything theme related, but I found my brother's copy of Populous. So I took that with me and I went game in hand, PlayStation 1, 2, 1. I can't remember. PlayStation box in hand to Gary Carr.
yeah,
Would you sign this? And he looked at me and went, no, stop it. Yeah, so I just took it home again, and that was that. But yeah, so that will be in there for sure. My first true love is Pokemon Red. I would rush home from school to play it on my emulator on my mum's work PC, and I still have the ability to play it whenever I want on two. I've got a Game Boy and a Game Boy Color,
fantastic.
accessible at any given moment. One with Pokemon Yellow, that's okay.
Yeah,
And then a third. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb with this one. It's going to be Fable Legends. And
okay.
it's going to be Fable Legends because, yes, I worked on it. Yes, it was cancelled, and that's very sad. But it was the kind of game that would not ordinarily be in my wheelhouse. Wasn't something, I'm not really into RPG. Well,
Yeah,
maybe a little bit now, but I'm not really into anything like that. And when it comes to anything with combat, I'm never into ranged. But with Fable Legends, I fell in love with a character called Rook, who was a grizzled Scottish, he's out there,
mhm.
um, crossbow wielding badass, and made a point of making it my entire identity at Lionhead. Like Rook was my character and no one was touching apart from me, and I was damn good at playing him too. So Fable Legends made me realize that I could step out of where I was and play more things and probably enjoy them.
Fantastic. I mean, fantastic games. I mean, the theme games. I remember playing. I played Theme Park to death, and probably sent a lot of punters in that game to death with some of the rides that I built. But and Theme Hospital as well. I love those games, like all those sort of simulation games, Sim City stuff. Like obviously the obvious one in that respect. But yeah, I mean it. And was it obviously Pokemon? Pokemon kind of passed me by, to be honest. Like my kids very much into it. The second, like whatever this wave is.
Well,
Um,
this is what I love about it. It's just kept going. It
yeah,
sucks them in so young.
it does. It
Like
does.
kids and poker, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, thankfully they didn't get into the cards. The games themselves, I've learnt my lesson in buying them straight away, because they maintain their price for one.
Mm.
They go up in price. Not that
So
I often.
do their limited skinned consoles.
Yes.
I have the Game Boy Pikachu Game Boy Color, but also the Switch Let's Go EV version, and
Okay.
they just don't lose value.
No,
They
it's
don't.
crazy. It's crazy.
Mm.
Like, well, it's not crazy. It's a collectible thing. They've done really well in that respect
They
to
know, and they
have that.
limit it as well. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And Fable, I mean, I'd never played the Legends because obviously, it was cancelled. But Fable itself, like the games from the past, I've got a couple of them, obviously, because I play tested one of them. I did get a copy of the game as well when it came out. So I'm just looking, I've got all my games kind of up there of like
I don't know if you can see them clearly enough, but these I've got two Fable discs. These are some of my prized. I
oh
always joked when they gave them to me. I was like, I'm going to put, as soon as I buy a house, I'm putting those in the downstairs loo. But
yeah.
then when it came to it, I couldn't do it. So I've got a Fable the Journey one and Fable Anniversary, and then this one is my pirate name from Sea of Thieves because Rare and Lionheads were
Yeah, yeah,
sister studios. But
yeah.
what I love, hang on, I'm going to do it. I'll probably never get this back up. This is worth doing. So this is personally inscribed to me by Gary Carr. So at this point, I'm just an admin. Like I'm not doing social media work or on camera or E3 on stage stuff or anything. And this would have been 2014. This came out 2013, 2014. And the inscription from Gary Carr says, "Lauran, thanks for all your support. Hopefully, I'll be a better boss next year." It
Amazing.
makes me so. I don't know if you can see it. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I reminded him of that as much as I could once I was
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. Did he live up to that?
He's one of my favorite people forever. So even if he didn't, I'd let him off.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, that's fantastic. Last question for you. It's probably very silly because it might encompass what you actually do anyway, but your hobbies away from gaming or the game industry.
Oh,
Um,
um, well, I don't know. I have loads because I have ADHD. So
yeah.
I have an entire room of hobbies that have been picked up, looked at, put down again. But my main thing, I don't know if you can call it a hobby, but I'm going with it anyways. Nature.
Okay.
I spend my entire life in the digital world. I spend my entire life looking at analytics and doing capture and making assets and staring at this screen with the daylight behind me.
Yeah.
I'm out there in the woods picking things up. I found an ink cap this morning. I didn't pick it up for the
Okay.
record,
Okay.
but just even on a short little dog walk, I my pet hate is people that walk their dogs with their headphones in, because not only are you missing all of this awesome stuff, but this is your dog's favorite time of the day and you're going to disconnect from him or her at that point. Like, stay present, man. And then I just listen and look and take photos and stare at trees and breathe in. The more remote the better, but yeah, my hobby is walking alone or with my dog,
Yep.
rain or shine.
That's fair. That's fair. I do enjoy walking my dogs actually, and that is right. I don't have my headphones in either. So
You need it for, well, yeah, that's it for your dogs. Absolutely.
yeah.
Never have your headphones in. But for like, we must never forget that we have those little monkey brains, and those monkey brains need to be connected to the outside. And the thing
Yep.
that really bothers me at the moment is that people say touch grass ironically. There's nothing ironic about that. Take your shoes off
Yeah.
once a day and touch grass. Like, it's so you need to literally ground yourself to
Yeah.
where you are.
No, it definitely that does work as well. Like it is, I would sooner go outside barefoot if I could, like on a lot of occasions. But yeah, you're right with the grass thing. I not every day, but I do that when I need to calm
Much
down
as you
or if I
can.
need to chill
Yeah,
out.
absolutely.
When stuff does get stressful, I've got a day job that's in the digital realm, but it is very customer facing, and there's sometimes where you just have to really disconnect, phone away,
Mm. Mm.
things away,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that just like helps you just sort of realize that, you know, you can just disappear from it.
Well, that's it. It gives
So,
you that kind of, space, headspace, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm also the I was going to say rearer. I'm the rearer of a toddler. I am the proud owner, keeper, parent, mother of a toddler. And I want to make sure that he knows exactly, I mean, of course, who he is down to him to work out, but
yeah,
where he is and what's important to our little ecosystem and what the seasons mean and what our natural, wildlife. I want him to understand all of that before he starts building any worldly knowledge on those foundations, because we are losing connection with our homelands the further we fall into our screens, you know, the more disconnected we are from everything we were and how life can work. You know, it all sounds a little bit hippie, but there's method to my madness. Like both of these things, both, you know, game development, digital world, of course, very important, but being grounded and knowing who you are and where you are and why is also very important.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's like my job, it's not in gaming or anything like that, but it does involve a lot of screen issues, not screen issues, but screen stuff
There's
on that.
issues. Yeah.
I can't talk about it on here, but I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But yeah, it's you know, and it is important to get that disconnect like from it and realize that it's not the be all. And it helps me with when I'm helping people with it or if anything
Exactly.
like that. And it, obviously with my kids and stuff as well, I've got a few of my own brood, and they're all, you know, they do spend their time on screens, on games or whatever, and but there is that disconnect. They know when to disconnect.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
difficult when they're younger because it's like
Incredibly important.
it can become that habit.
Mm.
But as they've gotten older and stuff like that, there has been like a good healthy level of disconnect
Mm.
from the screens to sort of like connect with either us as parents or, you know, when they're with their friends and stuff like that, they're not just all staring at their screens.
And I honestly, I know we're on final question. I shouldn't still be rambling, but you know, a big part of what we do as GG is convincing parents that games aren't evil, convincing parents that games are a viable choice. But part of that is precisely what you're saying. They have to then take responsibility for helping teach the child when to stop without being wrenched away, you know. So I think that there's a part and parcel fear almost, that there's that fear that what we're doing isn't serious and games are evil, but then there's the knowledge that, well, if I give them another thing that's on a screen, then I've got to police that and I've got to watch. So no, just none of it. And that just means that kids will run at it. If, you know, any child told no will find a way around it if they think it's unreasonable. So yeah, there's so much education that needs to go into how we approach, you know, screens, video games, you know, whatever you're looking at on that screen, social media and all of it. But yeah, it's, I guess, still so with games, at least with screens as well, I guess we're still at the early points of understanding what they actually do to us.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I think the absolute explosion of female ADHD is going to, in 20 years' time, be down to screens. We were the first generation to get screens in like what, early 2000s? What, phone?
Yeah.
It was like the start of it, right? So yeah, I think I would not be surprised if that's what it all comes out.
Yeah,
about.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
My wife was diagnosed ADHD. I'd say she was diagnosed late. She was her mid-20s. So,
God, I was late 30s. Lucky her.
yeah.
Good.
So,
Awesome.
but she, like, you know, obviously there's telltale signs and stuff before it, but you know, I help her, like, you know, I kind of understand it. I sort of, we manage in that respect with it.
Yeah,
And
it's just changing an approach
yeah,
to how
exactly.
you deal with the human and how that human deals with their life. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's teaching our kids as well to sort of see that as well, because there's a lot of times where they feel, you know, that things aren't fair or whatever, the way that she reacts to something, or maybe, you know, or something along those lines, not to go too deep into it, but yeah,
No, of
it's
course,
sort of,
yeah.
you know, just sort of
It's a difficult
learning.
thing.
We're still learning, you know. We've been married coming up 18 years, so been together longer than that, obviously, but you know, I'm still learning.
Yeah, well, that's it. It
You
is.
know, there's still certain things like I know not to interrupt a hyper focus or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know, just stuff like that. But you know, and I've seen hobbies come and go. I've seen all these sort of like projects sort of come and go, but it's sort of stuff that, you know, whether it's something I can pick up the slack of, if it's, you know, the sort of general sort of household stuff, or if it's, you know, with the kids or anything like that.
It's awesome that, yeah, that you're kind
Bounce
of
off each
adapting
other.
to it. That's
Yeah.
right.
So, I mean, you've got to. There's no,
Yeah.
you know, there's no other way.
Well, that's it. Unfortunately, can't change the way someone's brain's wired. That's that.
Exactly. Exactly.
They can change their approaches to it. But yes, no,
Yeah.
it's I should think we will find out that these things really do need kind of, you know, screen time needs serious kind of moderation and ability
Yeah.
to police yourself.
Yeah.
And that's not something that people are just going to be born with. We're going to have to teach our children how to police themselves, because how else is it going to happen? Yeah, it's a crazy place to be on the cusp of this new industrial revolution.
It is. It
But
is.
yeah, I wonder what it will all, what will come out in the wash.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, Lauren, thank you very much for your time.
No
Um,
worries.
good luck with everything Guildford.Games.
Thank you.
And with the festival next year. It's on February the 14th, everyone. Lovely way to spend your Valentine's Day.
February the
Uh,
14th. You can get tickets on Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster. No, what am I saying? Not on
Not
Ticketmaster.
on Ticketmaster, unless you
They're
want to pay for
on.
it.
No, why can't I remember where Eventbrite? They're on our Eventbrite.
Yeah.
So they are completely free to attend the festival itself. We've already announced 3 headline speakers,
Yeah.
or actually 4. Got more announcements to come. We're going to have exclusive playable games for the first time this year. And not only are we going to have them, the teams came to us to ask if we'd want to showcase their games for the first time in the UK, which is just
Amazing.
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 And loads more speakers to be announced. I'm literally working up the schedule at the moment. And if you see me, come and say hi, won't you? It'd be great
Yes,
to
I
catch
will.
up in
Yes.
person. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
definitely will.
I'm
I
usually
was
running from constantly running from place to place,
I
but
did notice that last time. I managed to just about get Julie,
mm,
even though she was sort of on a crutch
she was
and
on crutches. That's why easier to catch. Yeah,
exactly.
works out. Yeah.
But no, I was going to try and stop you. I think that's why I emailed you afterwards because I was like, you know what, you're busy. You've probably got more talks to do. So,
Yeah, it
and
was
then
crazy. And
yeah,
then I was sick for 3 months. So not hoping for that not to happen this year.
yeah,
Any
hopefully
luck.
not. Hopefully not.
But no, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to just sit and have a good old GG natter. It's lovely.
Thank you.
See you.